Okay, hi, I'm Jay Asher. I wrote 13 Reasons Why and The Future of Us. Are we giving like the full-on thing we did the other day, or just say who we are first? Let's just say, hi, I'm Jay Asher.
Hi, he's Jay Asher. Hi, I'm Leslie Livingston. I wrote the Winter Strange trilogy and Once Every Never.
And I'm Charles de Lint. Nice to have all of you come out this evening. Lovely to see you.
We're done.
Yeah, we're going to each talk a little bit about our books and whatever else we want to say, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And I'm not going to rhyme throughout the whole day. Okay, here's what I have to say. My name's Jay.
And go.
How do I follow that? Except the table's falling apart on me. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, so I had three things I wanted to do with this new book I've got that just came out called Under My Skin. And most of my books I've been writing for adults and for young adults have misfit characters. And I thought it'd be fun to write a book about a character who was kind of normal. And that's who my character Josh is in this book. He's just an ordinary kid who, like, weird things happen to him. The second thing I wanted to do was I wanted to try a series. I haven't written a real series before. I have the Newford books, which have been, I don't know how many books there are, but they're all written individually. They're all made to stand on their own, even the short stories. I thought it'd be kind of fun to write something, 3 books that just went from start to finish one story, because I'd never done it before. And I've had in many of my books for a long time, I've had this mythology of animal people, and I wanted to bring it up to a new audience, a contemporary audience, the young adult audience, and decided that's why I went with Wildlings. It's basically a bunch of kids in this small Southern California town called Santa Feliz who are just turning into animals, and they have the ability to turn into an animal and come back again. And most of them are just turning into things like rats or pigeons and things like that. But Josh turns into a mountain lion, and
Go, Josh.
yeah. And it's just, and from there, I mean, young folks. I remember it's been a long time since I was a teenager, but when I remember being a teenager, everything was dramatic in my life at the time. It was like everything was important, and stuff was just really going on. So I thought it'd be really fun to throw that into the mix as well. So that's what I was doing with that book.
So now we'd like to open it up to questions, and we will provide the answers.
Again, no pressure.
Wondering, since you guys have been traveling together for a couple of days now, what's the most interesting thing you've learned about each other?
She wants to have Pat Sajak's baby.
It's also part Godwin's baby.
And you're going to have to Google both of those, probably.
We just had a really, really funny conversation in the back room where she kept saying these people's names, and I just would go, "You want to have his baby?" And so that you asked that question was awesome.
Yeah, I have no idea whose babies they want to have. I'm feeling a little left out of the loop. It really doesn't. What is the most interesting thing that we've learned about each other, other than I want to have, visual. I know, right? And then Pat Sajak's is going to start following me on Twitter, and it must be true. And then I'm going to have some kind of weird smackdown with Vanna White. That would be the smackdown. It would be like 2 people doing this at each other. It would be, half of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, good. The rest of you, Google. Interpretive dance. Moving on. What's our next question?
Hi. How important is it for an aspiring writer to invest in formal writing classes versus just going with your inspiration and writing?
As opposed to following what somebody else says, here's what writers do.
One of the other things you can do too is that, like, all around us here we have, you know, the world's literature, and you can take those books and ask questions of those books. You can read a book, and then after you've read it, sit down with it and ask yourself, why do I like this character? Why do I dislike this character? Why is this book boring? Why is this book exciting? And you look at it and see how it's done and figure it out. But mostly I think it's just a lot of practice. People don't really realize that when it comes to writing, that it's just like any other craft. No one buys a piano and expects to be playing in Carnegie Hall in a month's time. So, you know, you have to be willing to put that work in. And the best way to do that is to really want to do it, to be really inspired. In other words, so you're really enthusiastic, so all the time that you're spending at that computer or at that notebook or wherever you're doing your writing, all that time, it's none of it's wasted because you're learning, it's a practice process, but you're also having a good time. Because that's what you should, if you're not having a good time doing it, you should be doing something else. Really, there's a lot of easier ways to make money.
There's also a lot easier ways to drive yourself into a loony bin, really, and well, yeah, never mind.
Hi, I'm wondering who would you stand in line to get your book signed by?
For myself, it's like Jay says, you know, you go to enough conventions and conferences and things, you get to actually meet all the writers that you love, unless they've passed on, of course. I can't think of anything offhand right now that I would stand in line to get my book autographed by them, but I'm lucky enough to have friends who's like, my favorite writer is Alice Hoffman, and you know, I've gotten to meet her and things like that. So, you know, it's just, no, I can't think of anyone. If I hadn't met Mark Godwin, I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having his baby though, not you. I'm
just going to facilitate.
Yes. That's right, folks. It got weird. Honestly, I have 3 cats. I am content. I also just outed myself as a crazy cat lady. Ah, man, this is going so poorly for me. Yes. Next question.
This is actually a question for Charles. You talked about channeling the immediacy when you were writing this particular book. Like, everything is very intense, and it's very dramatic, and very in the present when you're writing YA. Are there other differences in the writing process that you experience between writing YA as opposed to your adult work?
There was a lot more editing. I used to be of the belief that the only difference between adult books and young adult books was the age of the protagonist. And in my most recent book, there's Lynn's hiding back there. In my most recent book, I discovered that there's a lot of other things you can do to make a book more young adult friendly. I'd be hard pressed to tell you the exact things, but it was basically a matter of less asides, and there was more forward motion throughout the book. I don't actually like to think about writing too much, especially when I'm doing a first draft. I don't like to think about the process at all, because all I'm doing really is I'm reading a book but very slowly. So I'm finding out what's happening as I go along, and that's what gives me the joy of writing. That's what I love. I never talk about books that are in works in progress, because if I tell someone the story, I don't feel like writing it anymore. I'll have to do something different just to keep myself interested. So, yes, I don't know if I can really answer that question properly.
Okay, I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. If the 3 of you decided you were going to co-write a book right now, this second, what would it be about?
Monkeys.
Monkeys who can see their past on MySpace.
And are having babies with Pat Sagan.
Done. Sign it. Lynn? Excellent. Contract's in the works. I'm actually seriously considering that. That's not bad. We're just going to talk amongst ourselves here later, guys. Seriously, monkeys. Say Jack's monkeys.
Alright, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Alright, so for the signing, we're just going to get row by row, so if everyone could stay seated.